Right. Well, it is 1:35. Welcome everyone to the Colorado Libraries for Early Literacy 2024 Annual Conference. I hope you're having a fabulous conference. You are at DEI and Belonging in Children's Programming with Tiffany Miller. Our session ends at 2:25 and will be followed by a 25-minute break. If you run into any issues with the live stream, we encourage you to try refreshing your app or browser window. And now it's my pleasure to hand it off to Tiffany.
All right, thank you, Jen. Hi, I'm Tiffany Miller. Um, I work in a smaller library in Spanish Fork, Utah, and I am very excited to be sharing this with you guys today. So, our main takeaways today are going to be why it's important to start being aware, don't be afraid to try, and then ask, read, research. So, to start with that, why it matters. Um, so I don't know if you guys have heard of the third space, but libraries are one of the last free spaces people can gather. So most of the time you have home and then you have work for adults, school for children, and then there's a third place that you can gather, and that's the library. So because of that, we want to make sure that there is access for everyone. So that involves just making sure that everyone can get into your library and feels welcome. So the collections and programs, which accurately and authentically reflect the cultural perspectives of diverse communities, can help to eliminate some of these barriers. So just being aware that what you have in your library and the programs you offer can make someone feel more welcome. So, why this matters to me. So, in my family, I have a child, my oldest goes by they, them. And so that, and their gender is, yeah, is they, them. And so it means a lot to me when people are more welcoming to those types of individuals. I also have a son, showed a picture of him because he said it was okay, of him in his wheelchair. So that means a lot to me to make sure that he's able to do the things that most kids his age are also able to do. And then I have my niece right there, Mila, she's adorable, that is biracial. And I also have a sister-in-law from Argentina, and have seen the struggles that she has gone through, and I've noticed some of the things with my niece that when there is inclusivity and diversity in the collections, it really matters to them. My niece loves watching movies like Moana and is gotten into Wish and likes those movies that represent her even at such a young age. She's only 18 months old and she doesn't want anything to do with the Elsa or any of those other princesses. She likes the ones that look like her, and it's just really eye-opening to me to make sure we have those representations of all different types of individuals in every way. So, I like Anti-Racist Baby. It's a great way to introduce prejudices and what we can do ourselves to combat that. And so I'm going to read this book for you guys. It's a great way to introduce and talk about such a hard thing as prejudices and these subjects. So to begin with, anti-racist baby is bred, not born. Anti-racist baby is raised to make society transform. Babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There's no neutrality. Take these 9 steps to make equity a reality. So, number one, open your eyes to all skin colors. Anti-racist baby learns all the colors, not because race is true. If you claim to be colorblind, you deny what's right in front of you. I absolutely love that. Number two, use your words to talk about race. No one will see racism if we only stay silent. If we don't name racism, it won't stop being so violent. Three, point at policies as the problem, not people. Some people get more, while others get less, because policies don't always grant equal access. Or shout, there's nothing wrong with the people. Even though all races are not treated the same, we are all human. Anti-racist baby can proclaim. 5. Celebrate all our differences. Anti-racist baby doesn't see certain groups as better or worse. Anti-racist baby loves a world that's truly diverse. 6. Knock down the stack of cultural blocks. Anti-racist baby appreciates how groups speak, dance, and create as they choose. Anti-racist baby welcomes all groups, voicing their unique views. 7. Confess when being racist. Nothing disrupts racism more than when we confess the racist ideas that we sometimes express. 8. Grow to be an anti-racist. Anti-racist baby is always learning, changing, and growing. Anti-racist baby stays curious about all people and isn't all knowing. 9. Believe we shall overcome racism. Anti-racist baby is filled with the power to transcend, my friend, and doesn't judge a book by its cover, but reads until the end. So I just love how it points out all of these things because it's hard as humans to admit mistakes. And I love how it just empowers us to realize this isn't something that we do on purpose and that we can admit when something is racist and do better. So with that comes being aware. So I love Ibram Kendi. He's the author of this book. And his little saying up here in the corner, to be anti-racist is a radical choice in the face of history, requiring a radical reorientation of our consciousness. Because it is a reorientation, we have to retrain ourselves. So we are all born with an implicit bias, which is also known as implicit prejudice or implicit attitude. It's a negative attitude of which one is not consciously aware against a specific social group. Implicit bias is thought to be shaped by experience and based on learned associations between particular qualities and social categories, including race and or gender. So to combat that, we have to be anti-racist. We have to own our implicit biases. So being anti-racist is fighting against racism. Racism takes several forms and works most often in tandem with at least one other form to reinforce racist ideas, behavior, and policy. So types of racism are individual, there's interpersonal, institutional, and structural. So this applies for all prejudices and preconceived notions, not just with race, but with all types of, where it could be gender or physical or mental differences in people. So I love Brene Brown. She's amazing with all of the work that she does. And I love the quote of hers that says, I am not here to be right. I am here to get it right. And that's a very powerful thought to remember that it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. It's okay, but you want to get it right, especially for those around you. So, when dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, don't be afraid. It's really easy to be scared of making a mistake, but I put the little forget me nots as it's okay if you forget something. It takes a while to form habits, so don't forget that. Be gentle with yourself. Um, and then I love Maya Angelou. Um, the full quote that she has is, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. So, you can't do better if you don't know. So once you do, then it is your responsibility to start doing better. So just give yourself grace. And then when you do make those mistakes, which we all will do, um, remember that apologies go a long way. Admit your mistake is part of your apology. So say, oh, I am so sorry. I didn't realize that that was offensive. And I see that now. And thank you for pointing that out to me. Um, is a great way to say that, to say an apology. All right. So for trying, remember to, when you are in a situation, to address the child, not the parent. Um, even if the child's unable to respond to you, the parent may need to respond for the child, but still address the child. Let them know that they're an individual and they are seen. Um, presume competence. With that, don't assume a child cannot do an activity or cannot communicate on their age level. If you need to adjust something, then you can, but let them try first. And I am very guilty of this with my son. I sometimes assume that he can't do something. And last night, I got a great reminder of that he can do a lot. We were at an event where the kids of all different needs are able to do different athletic events. And one of those events was a mile run. And Quinn, my son, wanted to do it. And I was hesitant to let him try, but he did the whole thing on his own. And it was amazing to watch. And he was able to run with an athlete at one of our universities. They had a whole bunch of athletes there. And his athlete, at the end, he said, Quinn totally just amazed me with what he did. And it made him tear up and made me tear up because we can't underestimate these kids. They will always impress you with what they can do. And with our next one, process, not outcome, we need to remember it's not about a child finishing an art project. There's more than one way. We need to allow for more than one way of enjoying an activity and more than one outcome for success. So success isn't always straightforward. A kid dancing in a corner or sitting silently in a grown-up's lap can both be still be getting something from a story time. And then next, normalize. Try and introduce assistive technology and supportive devices of others when possible. If you have access to things like that, like crutches or wheelchairs, cochlear implants, let children use them, look at them, touch them, or see if someone that has those types of things can come to a story time and talk about that and share their experience and let people touch that. We 2 summers ago had Quinn do a story time, and he became very much the superstar. He was very popular. In the library, kids would be like, "Hey, I know you, Quinn," and he just loved it. And it really helped for instead of him getting questions about why does he need a wheelchair from the kids, he was then noticed, "Hey, you're a superstar. I love I love you, Quinn. I know you," type thing. And then, our last bullet point on here, all ages and abilities. Um, Allow developmentally disabled adults attend story times and events for children if you can. Um, Talk with groups that may visit your library. We get um, a couple of different groups that bring in adults um, that are differently abled and allow them to come to story times if they want. And even I would love it if we could do it, but we don't have the staff and time yet to make a weekly or monthly story time that's geared towards them and their interests and abilities and literacy goals. So remember that it's not just kids that need our support, but all ages. All right. For our next is ask. Remember that asking goes a long way. So for terminology, when dealing with these diverse communities, words matter and language is so fluid. Misused, outdated, and negative terminology are everywhere. So, to make it easier on yourselves, on all of us, you can just ask the child or parent what language to use when discussing them and their needs, or if they prefer you not discuss them at all. Some people don't want to talk about it. And so, it's always good to ask that. An example of that is I use special needs for Quinn, but some people prefer using a child with disabilities. So it really just matters. You can kind of try and listen in on what they prefer, but it's always good to just ask how you would like that, how they would like you to address um, their situation. And then another help. Always ask someone first if they want help. Don't assume if they're struggling that they need or want your help. So my son in his wheelchair, um, it's a part of him. When he is in it, it is his body. And so a lot of people don't realize that and don't always ask before touching it. But just like with any child, you would ask before touching their body, you need to ask them. I once was leaving a grocery store and struggling between pushing the cart and Quinn's wheelchair with the handle on the back. And he just came up and grabbed the handle and started pushing my son. And it was very traumatic for Quinn because this strange man had control over his body. And so um, it would have been much more appropriate for him to grab the cart than my child. But also asking how to help. And it would have been, I would have said, oh, could you push the cart while I push my son? Just so that he is more comfortable. So that's always make sure you ask because sometimes they don't want your help either. They want that challenge so that they can feel that success of succeeding, doing something that they're struggling with. All right. Now for some general guidelines. When talking about accommodations, use accessible instead of disabled or handicapped, like accessible bathroom stall, accessible parking space, just because it is creating access for someone, not it's changing that old terminology into more positive terminology. Um, just because number two, just because someone has a disability, it doesn't mean he or she is courageous, brave, special, or superhuman. Um, People will comment about Quinn being so great with his wheelchair. And when he was younger, he started using a wheelchair at about 2.5, and they would just be amazed. And I would want to turn around and say, "Oh, well, look how good your 3-year-old is at walking," because it was the same for him. It can be a little hurtful when you try to use those things when they're just getting by like the rest of us. And so try not to use that terminology, but say that you're proud of them for trying or that, um, just you don't have to say anything when they're doing something that is their everyday type of life. Number 3, referring to a person's disability only when it isn't related to what you are talking about. So you don't need to bring it up if it's not something that is in your discussion. Number 4, use disability. Don't use handicap, differently abled, crippled, victim, retarded, stricken, poor, unfortunate, or special needs. But again, it's that listening to what the family or the child is using themselves. Because I am fine with special needs, but like I said, other people don't want to hear that term. It's offensive to them. So just always listen and ask. That's why ask is so important. Number 5, it is okay to use words or phrases such as disabled, disability, or people with disabilities when you're talking about disability issues. And then number 6, when talking about people without disabilities, it is okay to say people without disabilities, but do not refer to them as normal or healthy. These terms can make people with disabilities feel as though there is something wrong with them or that they are abnormal. So just keeping in mind, trying to remember and switch that gear, um, that words matter, and just trying to remember that. And again, when you use it, apologize. I still use handicapped, even though it's an outdated term. It's that reforming those habits um, is always a great thing, um, and all of us have to do. So don't worry about making mistakes. And like I said, these are general guidelines to try and follow. They're not set in stone. Just do the best that you can. And like we said, know better, do better, but be gentle with yourselves. It's okay if we forget. And then the biggest thing with this is when talking about anyone, when in doubt, call a person who has a disability by their name or just anyone. Refer to them by their name. Is just a great guideline to follow. All right, so I have some books that I love for some of these different groups to try and have DEI and belonging. So these ones are for the LGBTQ plus community or just being different. My Shadow is Pink, My Shadow is Purple is a beautiful one for transgender. I love A Crayon Story Red. Um, I Am Me, a book of authenticity is really great. Just all of them. The Families is a really good one with showing how all families can be different and they're still a family. All right. And then for books with disabilities, We're All Wonders is a great one. That's a picture book that goes along with the book Wonder, if you've ever read or watched that movie. And then What Happened to You is one that I will share when I'll go into Quinn's classroom at the beginning of the school year, just to do a little story time to let the kids in his class know a little bit about him, so that they aren't asking questions and they know better how to spend time with him. And that one, the What Happened to You is great because it's a kid playing at a park and the kids are wondering about him, but then he just keeps playing. And at the end of the book, he asks that little girl that's on the cover with him, "Do you still want to know what happened to me?" She's like, "No, it doesn't matter." And it's just a great way to remember it doesn't matter, is it? Because you're still an awesome kid that we like to play with. Um, I love the book Just Ask because it covers so many different uh, things like autism, but also disabilities, being deaf, being blind. It covers a whole bunch. And so, yeah, I just love, these are books that we have in our library that I've read. There's so many out there, but these are ones that I really like and love. For BIPOC, so many. I absolutely love Bob Marley. I do a baby story time where we sing Three Little Birds. Um, that says every little thing will be all right. And so I love the book that's based on that song. Um, we have Platanos Go With Everything. My Spanish isn't great, so I'm sure I said that wrong. And it's just really fun to show different cultures. We The Proudest Blue. Sorry. Hit the wrong thing. Um, yeah, The Proudest Blue is a great one. And um, We Are Water Protectors, Fry Bread are great for Native Americans, as well as First Laugh, Welcome Baby. They are by Native Americans, so I love it. And you can't get away with, like, Fry Bread is always a great one to read. But these are just really good stories that I've found. Um, Bright Brown Baby, the Hello Beautiful You, Bright Brown Baby has a lot of really good ones if you need more diverse books for people of color and Blacks. They have so many that are just great. And then for yourselves to read, these are ones that I have read and were just really great and opened my eyes uh, to how I can be better at not just creating DEI, but belonging. I didn't say this at the beginning and I meant to. Belonging is so important with these things because you can have diversity, equity, and inclusion and still not really have that belonging. We want everyone to feel like they belong in our libraries, that they belong in our communities. And so it's really important to have that included with the DEI. So if you need more insight into LGBTQ community, The Savvy Ally and This Book is Gay are great reads. The Savvy Ally is just a really great one to become an advocate for that community. Legacy is from someone up in Canada, and Black Snake is here in the US that talks about Native American struggles and what they deal with. And then White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist are really good ones for us as white people to, or anyone, to get an insight into, to have that window into another world that we don't know about as much. And then I really love Real because it is by someone with autism that is nonverbal, and it is just a beautiful story and isn't too long. It's a quick read. And then I also love Uniquely Human and for that perspective in autism. And then The Sitting Pretty is for someone that is in a wheelchair, and it's a great insight into that world as well. So if you haven't read these books, I highly recommend them to help you being more aware of these communities. All right, so these are some of the things that I used for researching, and they're a great resource for these different communities and getting ideas with being more inclusive for these groups, if you have any of those questions. And I think I shared, and I'll do it again. This is a link to the presentation. So if you want to ever go in and see this, and I'll share it with the conference people so that everyone will have access to this so that you can have these resources. And then if anybody has any questions, now is the time that you guys can ask those. And then those are some of the resources that I used for this presentation. And if there's no questions, then I have some scenarios that we can do to talk about and kind of think through. I love kind of brainstorming with other people to so if these situations ever come up, we know what to do.
Hey, thank you so much. This has been just terrific, a terrific presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise and your experience. We do have one question in the chat, so as they come up, I'll be glad to read them. We have, how do the kids respond to you reading what happened to you?
Um, they are really positive with it. They kids are amazing with how they take in information. And so with that one, they always just like you can see little light bulbs going on and they'll ask me the questions so that that way Quinn doesn't have to ask those or answer those questions because he gets a little sick of it. Like the little boy does in the book. So yeah, we get I've gotten really positive um feedback from kids. Okay. So since I don't see any other questions, we'll go over kind of some different scenarios that might happen. And if you guys want to respond, maybe what you think you would do in that situation. Um, so the first one is in a music and movement class or story time, you have a child in a wheelchair that comes to attend. So maybe how might you respond to that kind of a situation? And feel free to unmute yourselves and talk about it if you can, or put a response in the chat. Making physical room and welcoming in, inviting them in. Using upper body movements. I love that. That's a great one. Yep. So those are great responses to that. That's what we usually do when Quinn comes to our music and movements is making sure that there is room for him to spin around. He loves dancing. So that's a great one. And using the upper body movements for sure. Trying to do more of that where you're not as much moving around the room, but just moving those upper body parts. Perfect. I love that. Okay. In a 3 to 5 age story time class, you have adults with cognitive disabilities that are wanting to come in. How would you respond to that kind of a situation? Oh, repeat? Okay. So you have kind of a preschool age 3 to 5 age story time, and there are adults that have cognitive disabilities that are wanting to attend. Okay, so discussing with the parents, gauge responses, and if they're open to it, inviting them in to join. That's a great one. I always like that. Melanie says that they let them join. Yep, that's what we do too. We are always happy to have them come into our classes. So respond just as you would with kids. Yes, welcome them and share with them where to sit. And that's great. Yes, make sure that they understand the rules too. So we have pads that we have the caretakers and kids sit on. So make sure that we would give them those too. Provide space and show them the books to see if they are things they would like. Yeah, that's great. Seeing it if they actually want to come into that story time because maybe they don't want trains. They want to discuss animals. So yeah. Mm. In our story times, we have a guidelines that we have for the story time, and one of those is story time should be fun. So remember, if it stops being fun, you can go. Um, so that way, um, the caretakers of these adults could, if they're not having fun anymore, feel free to exit the room if you need to. Let's see. We have a home nearby, and the people who live there are always interested in joining kids' programs. However, we have had issues with parents feeling uncomfortable and not returning. Any suggestions? If you have um, the budget and staff to do a story time just for um, the individuals, maybe try that. Or you could start educating at the um, beginning of story time that this is for all ages and abilities, and we try to welcome everybody. Um, so kind of, yeah, when it comes to the adults feeling uncomfortable, it's hard, but just doing your best with educating um, the adults, and maybe in a different story time that they might attend, having books about um, welcoming all abilities, maybe. Or um, I know it's a hard one when it comes to us adults. We're not as um, fluid in our welcoming, and that gets hard. All right, so let's try another one. So for a family activity night, you have a family that comes in that is non-English speaking. So I'll repeat it one more time, that you have a family activity night that you get a non-English speaking family that comes in. So one response was, go find my bilingual librarian. That's awesome. We have two now. We used to have none, and then we have two bilingual staff members, and that really helps a lot. Invite them in and do your best to communicate. Yes. Um, I've talked with our bilingual people, and they say that it always helps to even just saying hola to someone that speaks Spanish. You taking that effort is very welcoming. Let's see. Provide translated material. Yes. Create picture directions for all families to use. That's a big one. That is awesome. Always just do that as a standard. That's what I do, is I always try to have picture directions. Find out what they do speak, and then books that they can enjoy. That's awesome. Hands-on activity with picture directions. Yes. Utilize language line if needed to help them know what is going on. Perfect. I love that. Yes. I do our family activity night that we do once a month is a family art night. So I always have pictures showing what we're going to be doing so that they know. In evenings, we often don't have the bilingual staff, and it can be disruptive to try to find someone or call. I would try to communicate using nonverbal and share the activity with them as much as possible. Yes. It's always, like I said, important to help them feel that they belong. Go out of your way to welcome them with providing materials for them. These are all great. I love it. And I say this as a bilingual librarian in my department. Thanks, Kate. Try not to separate them into groups by language and ethnicity. Perfect. Yes. We do not want to separate. We want everyone to be mixed in. That is awesome. Yeah, don't put them to the sidelines. All right. So another program that you might be doing is a children's event party. And what do you do for families that have autistic children, or someone that's on the spectrum? So what would you do at a children's event party with families with autistic children? So I'll start on this one with what we have started doing is we have program room that we will keep the lights low and open. So we'll have the activity in one area, and then we have another space available that they can go in for quieter. Let's see, have headphones available for use. Yes, the noise canceling headphones are great. Make spaces for sensory overload breaks. Oh, these are going fast. Let's see. Let families know where they can go if they need something less stimulating and that they are welcome to come and go as needed. Yes, perfect. So let's see. Make spaces for sensory overload breaks. Make sure they are quiet spaces and headphones. Yes. We have an inclusive kit that can be pulled out, and if a family chooses to interact with the items in a kit, they can. That is wonderful. I love that you guys have that. It's the best. Offer resources available in library and community. I gave out emergency contacts or helpers. Perfect. Invite them to sensory story time, which is just for them. Perfect. Share what will be happening during the event and then allow space for times and breaks. Have the sensory bags with the headphones and other resources that they can use while in the building. You guys are awesome. You are on top of this. I love it. Yes, that is, oh, yes, having that. All right. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Yes. We when we think these things through, it really helps to like have these to think about it, and then you're ready for when it happens. Okay. Our next little program that we could that you might have is like a maker space or a STEAM class. What would you do if you have a child with one arm? Oh, we got a couple more for the if you have autistic patrons. Make sure that staff reacts appropriately to any outbursts. Yes, training the staff is always great. Label areas of building in different languages represented in the community. That's very inclusive. Yes, I love having different languages. Let's see. My library needs to purchase a sensory bag or kit. So if anyone has a link or resource for a sensory bag or kit, please share that in the comments. I'm still working on my director to get those in our library. He doesn't think that they're essential, and it drives me crazy because he has a son that is autistic, so you would think he'd be on board with that. So if anyone has a link for that, please share that. All right, asking how we can support them to be successful. And then the most important thing is not to assume that what the patron can and cannot do. Yes, so if you have a makerspace or STEAM class and you have a child with one arm, let them try first. Don't assume that they can't do it. If they seem to be struggling, so let them go at it first and foremost. Just let them do it. And then, yeah, if they're struggling, then you can see what you can do to adapt it with what you're doing. Yeah. I would let them have a chance to attempt the program, and if they need help, find a reliable buddy to help. I love that, bringing in the other kids. It's awesome. We have a lunch helper for my son, where another kid helps him get his school lunch. So instead of having another adult help him, he has a peer, and it's always great when you can get kids involved, because then you're building a bond between those kids, but also that helper gets to interact with someone that is different than them and see that they're just the same. And then it normalizes that. So I love that. Looks like we have a good link for someone for a kit, or the inclusive materials kit from Fun and Function. Thank you for sharing that, Jen. Okay, have a grabber tool to get things, maybe a basket to put stuff in so they don't have to carry items. I love that. Yes, baskets are very helpful. And the grabber tool, yeah, if they can have something that helps them hold on to it. I love it. Okay, so let's try another program and scenario. So we have a preschool class, and you have a blind child or a deaf child that wants to come to that preschool story time or class that you offer. What might be some things that you can do to be prepared for that? Invite interpreter to come up front. Perfect, yes. Let them know that they are more than welcome at the front of the class. If you have advanced knowledge, can bring in Braille books or audiobooks. Yes. Talk with the caregiver. What does the child like and need? Perfect. Yes, bring in the caregivers. While reading aloud, invite all children to picture the story in their minds. This will allow the child who is visually impaired to participate as they are. I love that, Kelly. That is beautiful. Yes. Have all the kids. Hey, we're going to read the story out loud, and you guys have to close your eyes and picture it in your minds. I love that. Blind, offer instructions in Braille. Deaf, find an interpreter to join. Maybe learn some basic signs with the kids as you read and get kids to practice. Yes. I love doing any signs in story times. For today, I wore my Be Kind shirt that has, I'm not great at sign language, but anytime you can include it and bring the kids to doing it too, learning them. Let's see. Be sure to describe the illustration in detail. Oh, that's great for all learners. That is. I love that, Kelly. This is great, you guys. Try an experiment with kids. Poke heavy-duty tag board and let them feel the braille letters or make alphabet chart. That's a great one. And that's one that any of us could do to create that. All right. Um, so those were all the scenarios I had. And I just love all the things that you guys came up with. Oh, for the deaf, make sure your face is visible when you are talking. Yes, that is so important to make sure you're not turning your head because then they can't see that you're talking. Perfect. Ask kids to describe what they see in the picture so the blind child can see. I love that. Bringing the kids in again. So good. I hadn't thought of doing that. That's beautiful. You guys are on top of this. I love it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming today to this presentation. Like I said, it means so much to me in my life. And so I love when people are willing to adapt and make things accessible for everyone. Let's see, we got another blindfold everyone and do a lesson with videos and books on CD. I love that. I bet the kids would love that too. Blindfolding everyone. Does that include you as the teacher? But no, these are great things to just maybe even incorporate in your story times if there isn't a deaf or blind child. Yes, use Braille and sign language on signage in library. That is so important. I love that. And there's so many there's so many resources that you can find those things. We're lucky to have a staff member that her mother teaches at a deaf and blind school, and so we're able to get a lot of resources through that connection. So look in your communities to see what's out there to help you, to support you guys with things like this, to be more inclusive in your story times. Because they are out there and they are always so happy to help because we all want to bring access to everybody because it is important for all to have access to our great programs at our libraries. All right, you guys, keep up the great work with all that you do.
Great.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Tiffany. This has been absolutely wonderful. And thank you all so much for the robust discussion in the chat. It's been wonderful.